Hey, this is Rob Anspach with Greg Jameson, and we're going to be talking about not only his new book, The Influence of Influencer Effect. See, that's another blooper. And some of his other books, Amazon's Dirty Little Secrets. Greg, welcome. And, I've known you for a long time, and I've never got a chance to interview you.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate doing this. This is going to be a fun time today, so I'm looking forward to it.
What got you into, because your first book was Amazon's Dirty Little Secrets, but your new book, you mentioned Amazon very heavily in this book. So what's the big fascination with Amazon?
Well, the big thing is that obviously they are the king of e-commerce. They outperform all other e-commerce companies by a wide margin. And I think that, it's like what Tony Robbins has always said, if somebody is doing something well, kind of mimic what they're doing so that you can get similar results. And I think that that's what people that own businesses need to do, is take a look at what Amazon has done well and say, what of those things that they're doing can I or should I be applying to my business? Not necessarily to say that you should copy everything that they're doing, but you definitely need to take a look at what is working for them and say, does this fit with my business model?
One of the things I believe heavily in if you have an e-commerce site, and Amazon does this a lot, you go to buy a product and they'll suggest something else. And they're always adding on. And those people that have e-commerce sites forget to do that. They forget that added on bonus sale. And that add on could, add another $25, could add another $50, the list goes on and on. But, you are from old school. You taught WordPress, you taught websites, and I think that's one of the things that we're missing today is that people are forgetting those add-ons.
Yeah, and that is absolutely huge. When I was doing a presentation a few years back at a summit in Las Vegas, I was on this panel to kind of review people's websites, and there was this big debate about whether or not, after somebody put an item in the shopping cart, if you should take them to the shopping cart page and have a continue shopping button on there, or if you should just leave them on the page that they're on so that they would hopefully do continue shopping. But then, the debate was, well, people didn't know if the item actually got added to the cart, so they might click on it a couple of times and end up adding more of them to the cart. And it was confusing for the user. And one of the things that Amazon brilliantly does is you click on the add to cart button and it lets you know that you've got the item in the cart, shows you your cart, and then down below it says, hey, people that bought this thing also were interested in these items here, and they give you about half a dozen other items so that you will continue shopping and not just check out. And that's one of those things that they do so brilliantly that I think that a lot of other companies really ought to mimic that process.
Right. And then they also, and I know that this is probably more for the bigger companies, but Amazon makes your purchase easy. What I mean by that is that not only do they accept, the dozen, the dozens of credit cards that are out there, but they also provide financing. They also do this. They also do that. And a lot of companies, you get to their website and it's like, okay, you only can pay with a Visa or MasterCard. You can't pay with American Express. You can't pay with Discover. You can't do this. You can't. I'm like, they're limiting the purchase. They're limiting the ability of someone to pay you.
Yeah, and I have been telling people for years, take people's money however they want to give it to you. Amazon, you can pay for purchases on Amazon with your rewards points even. So it's, the whole, there's a debate always too about, well, should I take PayPal or credit cards? And the answer is both. Mm-hmm. Even if people can pay with their credit card on PayPal, they may or may not understand that. So offer them both solutions. Some people myself included, keep a balance in PayPal and like to pay for online purchases with that. Other people don't like PayPal and they want to pay with a credit card. Take payment that way. However people want to give you their money, you should accommodate them, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about credit cards, because I think that, I've been accepting PayPal since 2002, and for a lot of people, PayPal is still new. They look at it and go, I didn't know the PayPal was around that long, and but then they say, well, I don't want to lose 3%. Well, in the whole scheme of things, okay, if say you're accepting $1,000 credit card. Well, okay, you're going to lose $30, and people are like, "Well, yeah, but if I do that over and over and over, that $30 adds up." Yeah, it does. But the thing is, if someone sends you a check, and most of my clients are out of state, so by the time I get the check, it's a week or 2 weeks later, depending on the mail service. Then I got to drive that check to the bank, and then I got to wait for that check to clear. You know what? I would have rather just taken the credit card and had the money right then and there. So I lose $30. I don't have to wait 3 weeks for the check to clear.
Yeah, that's a really small cost of doing business. And whether you're doing that on PayPal or one of the other aggregate type of payment systems out there like Stripe or something, that's a really small cost of doing business. And I think that, everybody ought to be doing that now, because it's so easy to do now. 10 years ago, it was hard. Mm-hmm. To do anything other than PayPal, at least. PayPal's always been pretty easy, but it's so easy to take a credit card online today that you just need to do it if you're going to sell anything online.
Well, you got Square, you got Stripe, you got, a bunch of other services that are out there. And even some of these, I think Intuit by Quicken, some of these accounting services are coming out with their own, processing of your credit cards. And to me, it's a no-brainer. It's just one more way for you to get paid.
Yeah.
But let's kind of delve into this book, because here, this when we go from Amazon's Dirty Little Secrets, it's a little book, but it's packed full of content. But your new book is huge. It's got tons of information. And it's all about creating that influence online.
Yeah, that was that new book there. It was actually something that was really fun to put together, and part of the reason is that I didn't set out to write that book. The book kind of wrote itself. I did a presentation actually back in January of this year, so it wasn't very long. Towards the end of January, I was given a presentation at the Denver Merchandise Mart, and it was an hour-long presentation. And I came up with the gears concept that I talk about in the book. And afterwards, I had, there were 60 or 70 people in the room, and like everybody in the room came up to me afterwards and was talking to me and was like, "This is really good content, really appreciate it." And I was like, I've already got this thing done. I created an hour-long PowerPoint on this thing. I had written my speech out so that I could practice it. And I was like, I may as well just turn this thing into a book. So I spent basically February and March kind of building it into a book, and then the next 2 months editing it, and a couple months to work on, okay, let's get this thing published and whatnot. So the writing of the book actually took less time than what people might think. It's getting the book out there that actually takes some time. But the content, like I said, was there, and it was fun to put together because it's mostly stories about what either myself or my customers have experienced over the last number of years. And I'm really happy with it, and I have gotten some good comments on it, feedback so far, so I'm pleased.
Yeah, I from your standpoint, my standpoint, and for those watching, I find that the easiest thing is to write the book, and the most complicated thing is to create a cover. Because the cover, I mean, let me grab one of mine or a couple of mine. The last three that I wrote, Power Guesting, and I helped my friend with Copywriting Handbook, and then my social media book that I co-authored with Lori up in Canada. They all took a long time to have a cover made. You know, my graphic artist, he's brilliant, but I find that a simple cover works so much better. So I give him a concept, and he's like, "Yeah, Rob, look at this," and I'm like, a lot of stuff on there, and you know, you tweak it and you change it, and then you simplify it, and then it goes, "Yeah, that's great. Let's do that." But I just find that the whole cover process can take a month, 2 months.
Yeah, and you don't know for sure what's going to appeal to people, because the whole idea is that, one, the people say you can't judge a book by its cover. Well, the fact is that people are going to look at the cover and they're going to go, "Oh, I want to open the book," or "I want to look at the back of the book." The way people typically read a book or decide if they're going to buy it is they look at the front cover. If that's appealing to them and the title's appealing, they look at the back, they see what's on there, and then they go to the inside and go, "All right, that's something that I want to take a look at." So you may not be able to judge a book by its cover, but everybody does.
Yeah, and you know, I remember when you were coming out with this book, the design on the front was so much busier.
Yeah,
and you cut a lot of that out, and I think it looks great now.
Yep. Well, I took your advice on that, so I appreciate it.
So how did you get some of these guys and gals to give you forwards? Because this is not a typical book, and what I mean by that is typically you have one forward in a book.
Yeah.
You have, I think, 6 forwards in this book, and they're not all after each other. They're, you know, usually before a specific chapter.
Right. Yeah. So I broke the book into sections based around this GEARS acronym. And so each letter in the GEARS acronym is a section in the book, and each section of the book has its own forward. And as it was putting the book together, I was just trying to think, I'm talking about how to kind of leverage other people to help you with your marketing and sales. And if I'm doing that, I probably ought to go ahead and apply that concept myself. And I know a bunch of people in the internet marketing world, so why not ask them? Mm-hmm. And it was actually really interesting. I saw a post on Facebook by one of my friends the other day that said, "What's your superpower?" And I wrote back and said, "My superpower is having friends like you." And it's really true, you know, that all I did was ask because I know these people. And I think that that's something that any business owner can do, whether it be your customers, whether it be your colleagues, whoever it is, get them to work with you.
Yeah. You know, and I think one of the things that really demotivates entrepreneurs is the fact that they have to ask. You know, and I have reached out to so many people, you know, and asked them, "Hey, can I do an interview with you?" And they're like, "Oh, yeah." And some of these are, you know, they're celebrities, they're this, they're that, and had I not reached out to them, I'd be like, "Oh, you know what? They're just up there on their pedestal. They're not going to say yes to me." But you never know unless you ask.
Yeah, it's like asking for anything else. You know, asking for the order. It's one of the things you have to do is you have to put a call to action out there and ask people specifically what you want. And the reality is that, yeah, a celebrity may not even answer your email. Right. And probably wouldn't. But if you know someone, they probably are going to answer your email. And then the question's only going to be, do they have time to actually accommodate your request? Because if you've already got a relationship with them, people tend to want to help other people out.
Right. Yeah. You know, I've noticed that over the last year or so, and maybe it goes back even further, but you force yourself to take time away from the business to exercise, to cycle. And, you know, a lot of entrepreneurs, and I have this tendency too, is because we're in front of the computer all day long helping our clients that we don't exercise. How is that important in what you do?
Exercise is actually one of the most critical things that I think any entrepreneur can do. And you're right, I have to force myself to get up away from my computer and do it too. But the thing that happens is that the types of things I like to do are hiking, biking, and skiing. So outdoor types of things. And what I find is if I go on a bike ride or go on a hike or something, it really clears your mind and kind of gives you all kinds of new ideas. You feel a whole lot better because the endorphins are pumped up in your system. But just in addition to feeling better, it really releases a lot of creativity, I think. So, yeah, I recommend, taking at least a half an hour every day and going outside.
Yeah. I mean, twice a week, my wife and I usually walk 6 miles. And the first couple of times I did that, I was dying. I thought, man, I'm going to have a heart attack. I'm not going to do this, but the more I kept doing it, the better I felt. And, I've been able to, I don't sleep as much. And maybe people are like, well, what are you doing, Rob? I'm like, yeah, but the thing is that, as an entrepreneur, I'm my brain is wired to always think about how I can help my clients.
Yep.
And so even when I'm sleeping, I'm thinking about, so typically I get 5.5, 6 hours sleep if I'm lucky, sometimes less, but that's just me. Some people need that full 8 hours sleep, but I've been an entrepreneur for over 20 some years. And for me, sleep is something I'll do when I'm dead.
Exactly. Yeah.
Doesn't really do much for me, but exercise is one thing that I need to do more of.
Well, I think quite honestly, you look healthier now than I think you did a year ago. So you must be doing a little bit of exercise.
Yeah, doing a little bit. I'm getting a little thinner, but yeah, I can still feel it in my gut. Maybe
As we all can if we're entrepreneurs.
Let's talk about the augmented reality and the VR cameras, because VR actually came out like 20 years ago, but it really didn't have an application in today's society until about 2 years ago when I guess they started coming out with the smaller sets to put on your phones. And
yeah. In fact, interesting. I've actually got one of those right here because I was just doing a presentation on that earlier this morning. So this is what one of those sets looks like.
Wow. For
people that haven't seen it. And what you do is you take your phone and let me actually show this because I think this is really interesting here. I'm going to try to do this here. You go to YouTube. Facebook actually supports 360-degree videos as well, but YouTube has a capability on there when you upload a 360-degree video that it will automatically split it into a stereoscopic image. And waiting for my phone to come up here. Okay, so I have on here a video of someone doing a mountain climb.
Mhm.
As I play that video on my phone, I may not be connected to Wi-Fi here, so it's taking a second. There is a little icon down in the bottom.
And this works for iPhones as well as Samsungs?
Yep, it doesn't make any difference which one. Okay, I ended up clicking on a different 360-degree video, but it doesn't matter. Down in the bottom corner here, I don't know how well people can see it, there is an icon that looks like virtual reality glasses. And when you click on that, it splits it into a stereoscopic image. And you can see here that as I move the camera around, I'm actually getting a different view. So you can put that into this virtual reality helmet here, and there's a sound built into this thing as well. So you click your sound in, put your phone inside this thing with that stereoscopic image, and then you get this full immersion when you put this thing on. And there's sound playing there, so I'm going to set it aside here so that I can actually talk to you. But that one happens to be a roller coaster. So this person took a 360-degree video while going on this roller coaster, and you can look forward, you can look backwards, and so forth. The entertainment industry, I think, is going to just go crazy with that, whether it be video games, obviously, kind of what has driven virtual reality in the first place. But if you think of movies and stuff, just think of going to an action movie and or watching an action movie basically in this virtual reality helmet, and all of a sudden bullets are flying all around you and you're totally immersed in this thing, and it's going to make things a whole lot more real.
Yeah, I mean, I remember going to Disney World. I think in Epcot they had in the Canada Pavilion, they actually have a 360 around the world thing of
their circle vision.
Right, circle vision. And so every time I think of 360, I think of the circle vision. But the thing is, if they would make this same circle vision into a 360 movie, everybody could walk in, put these gear things on, their head gears, and you could just be, oh wow. But yeah, I mean, it would be so cool.
Yeah.
I think movies going forward will have this technology.
I think so too, but as it applies to businesses and e-commerce, I did a 360-degree video recently for a customer of their shop. And, you don't have to be still, obviously, when you're doing this. You can be walking around the shop and explaining what's going on and so forth. And someone can, even without the virtual reality helmet, if they're watching a 360-degree video on either YouTube or Facebook, they can just use their mouse and kind of pan around and see what's going on in the store. And it's a great shopping experience.
They could probably do this with real estate, selling homes. And
there's a lot of realtors that are doing it. And I've actually, this is what my camera looks like. There are different ones out there, but this is what mine looks like. And you can see that there's basically two opposing lenses here. And it has 360-degree vision this way, and each of these lenses has about a 270-degree vision this way, and this way. And then the software stitches it together where it overlaps. So you get this whole spherical video when you're done, and you can sit there and you can look up or use your mouse and pan up so you can see the ceiling. You can look down, and obviously, like I said, look in any direction. And it's something that I think business owners need to be aware of and figure out, how can that apply to my business? Just like some of the other things, you started talking about augmented reality and some of the other things that I mentioned in the book. There's some of those technologies may not pan out for a few years. They may pan out next year, but as business owners, you need to be aware of these things are here or upcoming, and how's it going to affect my business? Because technology tends to disrupt businesses, and you need to be on top of your game.
Yeah, and speaking of augmented reality, I believe that the Pokemon Go game was augmented reality, where it overlapped creatures into the environment that you're in, so you go along with your phone trying to capture these things. And a lot of businesses were putting up signs, no playing Pokemon on our property. And, that did more damage, I think, than it did good, because now you got these kids who would have normally gone in and bought something. Now they're saying, well, I'm not going to go there because they won't let me play this game.
The really smart ones, rather than discouraging it, they created, I never played the game, so I'm not even totally sure of what the terminology was, but they created these Pokestop things where you would get extra points and stuff if you visited their store. So yeah, take advantage of it.
Yeah, I mean, they might not be your prime demographic, but if you can make a little bit of money off of, the particular game that they're playing, why not?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're using technology to influence, someone's buying ability. And so if they're out there playing a game on your property and, you're selling drinks or you're selling stuff, go for it. I mean, sell to them. Why not?
Yeah. And even if they aren't buying it themselves, the very fact that they are congregating around there, maybe their parents are there, or they're just creating kind of this effect of, hey, people are really, there must be something going on here because there's a lot of people there. And, that's part of the influencer effect too, is kind of getting people to go, hey, something's happening there. I need to be a part of it.
Yeah. How, you've been doing this for a long time. Right? You've been doing not only writing books, but teaching people marketing, online marketing for many, many years.
Yeah.
What got you into doing this?
I've always been fascinated with technology, and I kind of tell the story a little bit in the new book here of how I really got into technology in the first place. Like you said, I've been around for a long time, long before the internet, actually, doing computer software. And what happened was that my father was a professor at Colorado State University, and he had a research project that allowed him to bring home a portable teletype machine. And this was, in the days where people were reading paper tape into these teletype machines, and it would print out a line at a time. And so I was taking a course at the local high school on basic programming, where we had one of these paper tape teletype machines, one for the entire school, and you basically had to sign up for like your 15-minute time slot to run your code through there. Well, my dad brought home this portable machine that had the old school modem where you stuck the phone into the modem, and they didn't put a limit. I don't know why, but they didn't put a limit on how much time we could spend on the county mainframe computer that we were tied into through school. So I just dialed up from home, and I spent, 3-4 hours a night on this thing doing home computing before anybody else could. And I brought it into school, my printouts, and the teacher's kind of like, where'd this come from type thing. And I explained it to her, and she said, can you bring that into the school? So I got to actually bring it into the school and kind of show it off, a little show and tell thing about, hey, I'm doing this at home. So I've been enthralled with technology from the beginning. When the internet came out, it was kind of just, well, actually from all of that stuff, the very first thing that I did is I wrote a computer-aided design program for landscape architects, where people could basically design their landscape. And we talked earlier about virtual reality, and one of the things that we did at one of the trade shows that we went to is we actually worked with a virtual reality company, 20 years ago or however long ago it's been now. And they brought in this mainframe computer with a virtual reality helmet and so forth. And we had people lined up seriously for like an hour and a half waiting to have the chance to put on this virtual reality helmet, where they could go in and do their own landscape design by picking up a tree and moving it over here and actually smoothing out the ground and stuff. It took a lot of computing power back then to do that kind of thing. But it was fun, obviously. Ended up selling that company and getting into the internet when the internet came out, and have, still technology, and I'm still totally intrigued with it. And it's one of the things that turns me on, which is why I think that I'm able to really help customers out, because I get excited about this stuff.
I started learning coding in 1984, and then in high school, they taught computer programming, so I started learning on a Trash 80 or a TSR 80 from Radio Shack. These big, fucking huge hernia busting machines, and every process, put a floppy disk in, do something, take the floppy disk out, put another one in. And I'm like, this is taking forever. I wish they'd speed things up. And, it took 20 some years before they finally made computers faster. But, when I went to college, I didn't take computer programming, but I helped teach some of the kids that were there how to do computer programming. And I remember, and this was long before, chat was out, or all these other technologies, where I'm in my little cubicle, and this was 1987. I'm in my little cubicle in Penn State, and I'm able to send messages to another computer, in another Penn State college or campus, and just by simple coding. And then it was almost 10 years later that ICQ and some of these other AOL had their own chat, and then it became very popular. But the technology was 10 years old before it even became popular.
Yeah, it's interesting listening to you talk and hearing myself talk about kind of the start of the internet. And I saw a thing, I think it was last year, that that was the year that the class that was graduating from high school was the first class that had never known life without the internet. Mm-hmm. I was just like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, my very first email was AOL, and it was in 1994. And I think I had that email for, 2-3 years, and then I switched to some other service. But I'm just amazed that clients, they'll email me and say, hey, yeah, my email is and it's an AOL. I'm like, seriously? You still have an AOL email? It's 20 some years,
Yeah.
And people are so fascinated with touch screen computers. But I remember back in the early 90s, probably 1991, I worked for a plastic manufacturing company, and all the machines, all these, extruding machines were controlled by touch screen computers. And people are like, well, that's new technology. No, it's old technology. It's a different application.
Yeah. And it's kind of like some of these other things we talked about, whether it be 360 video, virtual reality, whatever, obviously touch screens. Most of those technologies have been around for a long time, but in the last few years, have gotten good enough that they have become practical for people to utilize.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's, and I think that's the whole gist of what we're talking about, is that no matter how technology changes, you can still utilize it. That and asking of friends that are already in what you're doing, the industry that you're trying to get them to help you create your influence, to help build your business.
Yeah. And, you know, that goes back to the point of the book, obviously, is you can't do everything by yourself. And so if you can't, don't even try, you know, instead say, hey, who out there can really help me get this done, whatever it is I'm trying to get done in my business. And sometimes it has to do with your product. Sometimes it has to do with your business setup, financing, whatever. Maybe it's getting other contacts out there, but people tend to look at other people and go, kind of what you said earlier, you know, they're not going to help me, whatever. People like to help other people. And when they do, not only does it give them a good feeling, but it also gives them the opportunity to kind of expand their own brand as well. You know, you wrote one of the testimonials on my book, and you've been, you did a video of it and so forth, and greatly appreciated, obviously. But one of the cool things is that doesn't just help me, it also helps you. And that's really what influence is all about, is being able to help each other.
You know, and the funny thing is that, you know, since my first book came out in 2013, and now I've co-authored, authored, or produced 16 books in the last 4 years. But since that very first book, people have come to me and say, hey, Rob, you know, can you give me a testimony on my book? Can you write the foreword on my book? Can you do this? Can you do that? So, you know, over the years, every book that I, you know, launch, or I help other people launch, or I'm mentioned in their book, increases my own authority. Now, I'm not trying to say that to brag, but I want to impress upon people that creating your own influence is a lot easier than you think.
Yeah, and it's so true what you just said. There's, you know, some of the people that wrote those forwards in the book, they are much bigger names in internet marketing than I am, than you are, to be perfectly honest. You know, both of us put together. I have a couple of people, when I put together my Thunderclap campaign, which is actually going out today, that contributed like 500,000 people to the Thunderclap campaign. They're happy to help out because it's not just, hey, let's help out this guy that's getting started. It's increasing their authority as well, too. So when and this book, it will become a #1 bestseller, almost guaranteed. It's on the Kindle stuff. It's already in the top 100 in 3 categories. So it's launching today, really, and it will definitely get to #1 here within a few days. And for any of these people to say that, hey, I wrote the foreword to this #1 best-selling book, it helps them.
Yeah. You know, and I'm actually looking right now on Amazon, because I thought I checked it out the other day, and you were at number 27 or 26 or something. And I thought, man, that's awesome, because it hasn't even officially in the launch yet. And
I'll have to look it up here too, see where I'm at.
You are at 29. So,
Right.
But you know, that the one thing I've noticed about Amazon is that can change at, you know, within an hour. So if enough people buy the book, that 29 could go to #1 real quick.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happens is that they update that on an hourly basis. So,
although I find that sometimes their updates aren't always updated as well. It just seems like during the day, from 8 o'clock in the morning till 9 at night or 10 at night, updated every hour. From, you know, 11 o'clock at night to 4 in the morning, it's, who knows, because there's no rhyme or reason.
It's actually kind of interesting. I think that Amazon is doing some things manually now that they used to automate. and that includes reviews. That used to just, put a review up there, and now they're like manually reviewing the reviews.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's a good thing, but
yeah, it's I don't know. I've with all the books that I have up and helped people on, it just seems like the process to put books on Amazon gets a little trickier every time. You would think that it would get easier, but it just Amazon's always trying to improve, and I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just saying that when you're trying to put a book out there, sometimes it's the stress of making that book more popular so that it can help build your authority. But
yeah, well, what you said there about how Amazon's always trying to improve, I think that is a good thing. And I think that is one of the things, one of the lessons that people can learn from Amazon is, they don't always have it right, and they don't admit to it. They are constantly experimenting, and they're constantly trying to figure out how they can make things better. And I think any business can do that.
And the thing is again, for all those that are listening, is that we can't keep being stuck in what we're doing. We have to continuously improve what we're doing. And that means testing. And a lot of my entrepreneur friends refuse to test. They don't want to jinx what they're already doing. But the problem is, if you don't continue to improve, you don't know what's going to help. And it's that leap that you're going to take. So if you're at this plateau and you don't want to take that chance to maybe get up here, you just keep on doing the same thing over and over again and hope that your results stay the same. The problem is that life doesn't stay the same. And that plateau that's right here may take a dive. So you got to keep testing to make sure that you continuously put out good stuff and that people see that, why they need to keep trusting you.
The life of an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Ups and downs.
The problem, and I'm not going to say it's the problem, but as an entrepreneur, you have to be prepared for failure. But it's those failures that ultimately lead to your successes. And Amazon is the prime example of taking multiple failures every day to get to that success. I mean,
yeah,
Jeff Bezos may not be the most well-liked guy in the world, but look at how much money he's made with a simple idea that grew and grew and grew. And now he's second richest man in the world next to Bill Gates, and it keeps going back and forth.
And Amazon does experiment a lot. They've actually put out products that have been total failures, and they've put out some business processes that have been total failures. But that's one of the things that Jeff Bezos actually talks about is that you have to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to keep experimenting so that you can figure out which ones are going to work. And most things that people come up with in their business, quite honestly, they probably are not total failures, even though it's like, I put this thing out there, I advertised it for a month, and I didn't get any sales, so it was a failure, and they quit. The reality is that you're often really close to success, and you don't even realize it. So when you think that you've got a failure in a particular product, for example, it may just need to be tweaked, and it may need to be you're trying to sell something to one particular niche, and that's not the niche that's interested in it. It's, some other niche that can sit there and look at that and go, yeah, I could really use that thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the thing is that I think that was the prime, let me dig back in my box here. That was the prime reason that I wrote this book with Lori Ratzlaff, is that the No Experience Necessary book on social media for the boomers, Gen Xers, and over 50 entrepreneur is a market that doesn't understand or is afraid of social media. So, we just wanted to make a product that was easy for them. And I wrote a social media book a couple years ago, and everybody thought, hey, Rob, this is the easiest social media book ever. But I think this one makes it even easier for the people that, are a little bit older.
Yeah.
And so you always have to look at how can I improve not only what I'm doing, but for a different demographic.
Exactly. Yeah, my mother actually just learned to text last week when she was on a trip. And it was almost one of those things like, it's okay, Mom, you don't need to text every hour.
Wait till she gets those charges, roaming charges. I did that when I was in Madrid a couple of years ago, and I forgot to put roaming on my phone. An extra $100 and some on my phone bill. I'm like, whoops. Just from texting. But Greg, how can people get a hold of you?
I've actually got two websites, and I'll go ahead and mention them both. My author and speaking website is just gregjameson.com. Jameson is spelled with an E, just like the whiskey, so it's pretty easy to remember. The other site is my business site where I do my e-commerce work for my clients, and it's webstoresltd.com, like Web Stores Limited.
And what I'll do is I'll actually incorporate those links in the video when I put it
Awesome.
So it'll be under your name and all your particulars. And but Greg, this was great. And anybody watching, if you want to follow Greg on social, he's on Facebook, he's on LinkedIn and Twitter, and
you can find me anywhere.
Find him anywhere. Just type in Greg Jameson, and or go to Amazon right now and buy his books. This one and this one. While you're at Amazon, you can buy my books too.
There you go.
Get
them all.
Get them all. Spend a couple $100, But the thing is that, following me, following Greg, following other people in your industry is going to help you improve your authority, your influence, and make you better. So, thanks, Greg, for stopping by, and let's do this again.
All right. Thanks, Rob. This has been a lot of fun, so appreciate it.